The words landed hard against the glass walls. "You're done. Pack your desk." The CEO didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The authority in it was practiced, almost casual. Around the long conference table, quarterly reports lay open like evidence. No one moved. A paper cup trembled in the marketing director's hand, coffee lapping against the lid. Somewhere to the left, a pen slipped from nervous fingers and clicked against the polished floor. Marcus Reed sat halfway down the table, shoulders straight, tie slightly loosened from a long morning. Compliance director. Single father. The quiet one. Didn't argue. Didn't blink fast. He closed his leather notebook carefully as if finishing a thought. "Understood," he said. Calm and even, the CEO nodded toward the door where security had already appeared, summoned with a text. A faint smirk tugged at his mouth. An example had been made. Marcus rose, gathering his things while 72 hours earlier, something had already begun shifting beneath their feet. 3 days earlier, the same glass building had felt different, tense, but orderly. Halbrook Logistics wasn't a giant, just a respected mid-sized freight company on the south side of Chicago. 30 years in business, regional contracts, steady growth. The kind of place where loyalty used to mean something. That changed when the founder died suddenly in late winter. Within weeks, private equity stepped in. Restructuring began, and at the center of it stood the new CEO, a man known in industry circles for cutting dead weight. He wore the reputation like a medal. Marcus Reed had transferred into compliance shortly after the buyout. Quiet, methodical, always the first car in the lot, always gone by 6 to pick up his 10-year-old daughter from aftercare. He didn't linger in executive circles. Didn't network. What no one in that conference room knew was this. The founder had been Marcus's godfather, and before his death, he had finalized a sealed equity transfer, 51% controlling interest, filed, legal, binding for now. Only the board chair and corporate counsel were aware. The CEO was not. And back in the boardroom, his voice was only getting louder. Back in the conference room, the CEO paced slowly behind the chairs, remote in hand. A bar graph glowed on the wall, red slivers where profits should have been black. "Compliance delays cost us 8 days, he said, tapping the screen. 8. He stopped behind Marcus's chair, close enough to make it personal. "We can't afford weak links." Around the table, eyes lowered. The HR director folded her hands tightly in her lap, studying her wedding ring. The CFO adjusted his glasses and pretended to reread a page he'd already memorized. A junior analyst gripped his pen so hard his knuckles blanched. Marcus kept his voice level. The reports were delayed due to pending regulatory verification. Filing early would have exposed us to. The CEO cut him off with a sharp wave. "This isn't a daycare. This is business." A few people shifted uncomfortably. The implication hung there, subtle, deniable but heavy. Marcus didn't react. Didn't rise to it. The silence that followed wasn't agreement. It was fear. And the CEO, sensing it, decided to go further. The CEO stepped back toward the head of the table and straightened his cufflinks, as if concluding a routine agenda item. "Turn in your badge," he said. Effective immediately. The words echoed sharper this time. At the door, 2 security officers appeared, summoned without announcement. Presence shifted the air in the room. It wasn't policy. It was theater. "You don't fit the direction we're heading," the CEO added, voice cool, almost bored. Marcus reached slowly for the lanyard at his neck. No tremor. No rush. He unclipped the badge and placed it on the polished table with deliberate care, sliding it forward an inch as though returning borrowed property. His phone lit up beside his notebook. Poured chair. The name glowed against the dark screen. Marcus glanced at it, then silenced the call without comment. Across the table, someone's elbow nudged a paper cup. Coffee spilled in a thin brown line toward a stack of reports. No one moved to wipe it. The air conditioner hummed overhead. Papers rustled. No one spoke. "Effective immediately," the CEO repeated. Marcus stood, briefcase in hand, and finally looked up. "Before I leave," he said quietly, "you may want to check your email." "Check my email?" the CEO repeated, a short laugh slipping out. "I think we're finished here." Marcus didn't respond to the tone. He set his briefcase back on the table and unlatched it with steady hands. From inside, he removed a slim gray folder, nothing dramatic, no thick stack of papers, just something precise. He placed it in front of the CEO without sliding it, close enough to claim space. Before the CEO could push it aside, the conference room door opened again. This time, it wasn't security. The board chair stepped in, still expression unreadable. Conversations that hadn't even started died in people's throats. Chairs straightened. The CFO half rose, then thought better of it. The CEO blinked. "We're in the middle of, we need to clarify something," the board chair said evenly, eyes moving to Marcus, then back to the table. "Before any termination proceeds." The word proceeds lingered. The CEO's jaw tightened, confusion flickering into something thinner. Not fear. Not yet. But the room had shifted, and the explanation that followed would not be loud. The board chair rested both palms on the table. "Mr. Reed is the majority stakeholder following the equity transfer filed last month." No one breathed. The gray folder was open now, its contents turned toward the CEO. Legal letterhead, filing confirmations, signatures dated and sealed. The board chair slid a final document across the polished wood, 51% controlling interest. The CEO stared at the page, as if the numbers might rearrange themselves. The color drained from his face in slow degrees. He flipped to the next sheet, then back again. His fingers, steady minutes ago, trembled just enough to notice. Across from him, Marcus had resumed his seat, no smile, no sharp inhale of victory, just composure. "I believe this meeting is out of order," he said quietly. The air shifted, not dramatically, just decisively. One of the security officers eased a step backward, uncertain now who he was meant to escort. Silence pressed in from every wall. Authority had not raised its voice, it had simply changed hands. CEO cleared his throat, reaching for something, an objection, a loophole, control, but none of it came. "This must be procedural," the CEO managed, forcing a thin smile. "Temporary transfer until the estate finishes. It is binding." The board chair interrupted. "No edge. Just fact." The CEO looked to the CFO as if searching for backup. The CFO cleared his throat, finally speaking. "The transfer cleared compliance 2 weeks ago." The words seemed to hang in mid-air. Compliance, Marcus's department. A faint, almost invisible shift moved around the table. The HR director lifted her head for the first time. The junior analyst let out a breath he'd been holding, so long it sounded like air escaping a valve. At the door, security exchanged a glance, then stepped quietly into the hallway, closing it behind them. Marcus rose, not abruptly, not triumphantly, simply standing to be heard. As majority shareholder, he said evenly, "I'm calling for an immediate executive review, effective today." The CEO's mouth opened, then closed. The reality settled in stages. The public firing, the security call, the smirk. He had just dismissed the man who owned the company. Marcus didn't return the humiliation, didn't teach the moment with sarcasm or revenge. His restraint made the collapse heavier. The CEO lowered himself into his chair, slowly, as though the strength had left his knees. But embarrassment in a boardroom was only the beginning. Institutions have memory. The emergency board session lasted 6 hours. Documents were pulled, emails reviewed, exit interviews reopened. What began as a single confrontation widened into a pattern no one could comfortably defend. Termination data showed disparities that were hard to explain away. High-performing minority managers dismissed under vague labels, culture fit, directional misalignment. HR complaints quietly archived. Warnings softened before reaching the board. An external law firm was retained by week's end. Within 48 hours, the CEO was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. By the following Tuesday, the vote was unanimous. Terminated for cause. Severance revoked under the morality clause he once praised. Shareholders received formal notification. A measured press release cited leadership misconduct and breach of fiduciary responsibility. Inside the company, changes moved quickly. An independent ethics oversight committee formed. Termination protocols rewritten with documented review layers. Mandatory executive bias audits scheduled annually. When asked to step in as interim CEO, Marcus declined. He recommended the senior operations director instead. Steady, respected, unflashy, power he seemed to believe. worked best when it wasn't performed. Weeks later, the building felt quieter. On Friday afternoon, Marcus stood in the pickup line outside his daughter's school, sunlight glinting off the windshield. When she climbed into the passenger seat, backpack thumping against the door, he smiled the same quiet smile he always had. No cameras, no interviews, just homework questions and dinner plans. At the company's next town hall, he stepped to the microphone without introduction. The room was full, but calm. Leadership isn't volume, he said. It's responsibility. That was all. The applause that followed wasn't explosive. It was steady, earnest. In the weeks after, the glass boardroom felt different, lighter somehow. Conversations less guarded. Questions asked without fear. Marcus kept the same parking spot near the side entrance, the same modest office overlooking the loading docks. Ownership hadn't changed him. It had simply revealed him. And maybe that was the real shift worth remembering. Power can look permanent when you're the one holding the microphone. It can feel untouchable when no one in the room dares to speak. But authority built on volume is fragile. Ownership, real ownership, moves differently. It waits. It documents. It remembers. Humiliation often feels safe in the moment, especially when it's public and one-sided. But history has a way of circling back. Titles change. Tables turn. And the loudest voice in the room is rarely the one with the final say. Maybe you've seen it happen. A supervisor who pushed too far. An executive who mistook fear for respect. And then, one day, consequences arrived. Have you ever witnessed someone misuse authority only to face it later? Do you believe power reveals who someone truly is? Or does it create them? Share your experience below. And if stories of dignity and accountability matter to you, stay with us.